Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Big Fly Baseball Show, episode number 2. It is crazy that week has already flown by and a lot of stuff happening in Major League Baseball. I'm glad you can join me once again. This is, like I said, the second episode of the Big Fly Baseball Show. And if you weren't with me last week, just kind of a brief explanation of what I'm doing, or what I want to do anyway. This is a show that I started back in 2020 during COVID. It went away, and wanted to talk a little bit more in depth by myself as far as things that are going on in baseball. And that's why I decided to bring the Big Fly Baseball Show back. You can find us on any and all of the podcast platforms, whether it's Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Amazon, doesn't matter. We are there. And then also, this is recorded via video as well. So you can watch the Big Fly Baseball Show via my Big Fly Baseball Show YouTube channel. Be sure to like and subscribe. I will be not only doing these shows on a weekly basis on the YouTube channel, but also planning on doing some stuff where I could do some live game cast and interact with fans. And it'll be any game that it can be any game during any particular week, and planning on doing that and see how that goes. Maybe a little play-by-play, if you will, and follow along with the game day. And like I said, kind of flying by the seat of my pants at this point. And why not? It's my show. I can kind of do whatever I want. I am toying with the idea of bringing on a host, or a co-host, if you will. Just haven't decided if it's the right fit, if we're going to do it. It's a time commitment thing sometimes as well, and trying to figure out schedules. So I'm planning on doing that at some point, and if it works out, great. If not, no big deal. You get stuck with me, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, I guess, depending on how you look at it. But also doing interviews and the like, and trying to get you different perspectives on what's going on in the game of baseball. I've like grown up in this game. I love it. And it's one of those things where I'd like to share as much information as possible. I'm also doing some college baseball, having just completed a game on Saturday at TCU, where TCU snapped a 5-game losing streak and beat Texas Tech. As a matter of fact, they took 2 of 3 from Texas Tech, which is very important for TCU. But I'm obviously close to the amateur game as well, and so I'll talk a little bit about that as well. So basically, just a baseball show, and it kind of goes wherever I kind of feel like going. I have no set timetable, no set agenda by any stretch of the imagination, but just kind of talking all things that I've seen, things that I've read, things that I like, things that I want to share with you. And so that is the gist of the Big Fly Baseball Show. So, like I said, we could be on here for 15 minutes. It could be on here for 45 minutes, like I was last week. But it just kind of see how everything goes. And, like I said, nothing scripted. I do have some bullet points that I do want to touch on. And then I just kind of go off of that as well. So let's get started in episode 2. I appreciate you once again for listening via the podcast, as well as watching on the YouTube channel. As far as everything that is going on in Major League Baseball from on the field perspective, the New York Yankees continue to roll. I know I touched on them last week, but they are a very, 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 very good team. They are 12-4 going into this week of play, and they ended up just taking 2 of 3 from the Cleveland Guardians in Cleveland. And it could have been a sweep. They lost in extras on Sunday. They're rolling right now, and the thing of it is, they're doing it both at home and on the road. They're 4-2 at home, so they've just played a limited schedule. 8-2 out on the road, so it doesn't matter whether it's Yankee Stadium or otherwise. They continue to take care of business, and currently have a 2.5 game lead over the Baltimore Orioles. Which that 2.5 game lead over the second place team. Yeah, I know it's early and everything, but that is the largest lead going into this week of any division. So the Yankees continuing to do good things as far as they're concerned. Aaron Judge is starting to swing the bat, a little bit more authority, and it's been a fun Yankee team to watch, and a dangerous team if they continue to click, and then they get Garrett Cole back. It's going to be an interesting season in the American League East. I think the Orioles still are a very good team. And we'll see how the Toronto Blue Jays and the rest of that, the Rays, the rest of that division shakes out. But right now, it is a stranglehold. Dare I say, the Yankees are the best team in baseball. Record-wise, they are 12-4, and they are the best team in baseball. And that's not taking anything away from the Dodgers. I'll touch on them in just a second. I think the Dodgers have the best offense in baseball. I just think that right now the Yankees are the best team in baseball. One of the other fun stories that I think I touched on last week are some of these up and coming teams that maybe nobody had or very few had high expectations for, but the Kansas City Royals. Kansas City Royals continue to roll. They finished off the homestand last week by sweeping the Houston Astros, and it was a 7-0 homestand before going out on the road. They got a little hip check at Citi Field against the Mets over the weekend, dropping 2-3 to the Metropolitans. But they continued to play good baseball. And the one thing that stood out for me as I was kind of looking at the numbers and looking at just what's making these guys click. I don't know that many would guess uh, that the team that has the largest run differential in Major League Baseball right now is none other than the Kansas City Royals. They are plus 37 going into this week of play. And so they continue to do it offensively, led by Bobby Witt Jr., who I think is a phenomenal a star on the rise that just continues to get brighter and brighter. And I think, uh, this is a sneaky good Royals team that is sprinkled with some veteran players that potentially could do, at least have some fun in Kansas City. And I think the Royals have played really good baseball since the stadium vote didn't go their way a couple of weeks ago. So maybe trying to turn some heads, if you will, and try to get the Jackson County folks to change their minds about perhaps building a new ballpark near downtown. But kudos to the Royals. They continue to play good baseball as they are in the second place right now in the Central to the Guardians. I mentioned the Guardians losing 2-3 to the New York Yankees. The Astros trying to pick up a little momentum. They just hosted the Texas Rangers over the weekend at Minute Maid and took 2 of 3 from the defending world champions. The and they're playing a little bit better baseball. They still have issues. I know there's some folks out there that continue to wonder about their lineup construction and whether or not they're being able to maximize the RBI opportunities. But obviously, Alex Bregman's off to a slow start. Kyle Tucker's a stud. He's going to be fun to watch. But they do have some issues in that bullpen side of things, and I think that's the concern right now. They've also had the injuries that we touched on last week. Framber Valdez, it was revealed this weekend, didn't need an MRI or didn't have an MRI. He feels better, and so I think that is a good sign, assuming that everything continues to move positively for him, that he could return to the rotation and be a key contributor. The other thing, and I'll touch on a little bit, Verlander's coming back too at some point. So I'll touch on that here in just a second as far as the injury updates. But the American League West in general is, it's mediocrity right now. The Rangers leading the division with an even 500 record, even though they just lost 2 or 3. They're 8-8. Obviously, without Josh Young, they've had some issues as well as far as injuries are concerned in their rotation. And there's no real team in the West right now, in the American League West, that you feel confident just up and running away with things. And I think that bodes well for a team like the Seattle Mariners. It really hasn't kind of gotten off the schneid yet. The Angels seem to be a team that are kind of Jekyll and Hyde. They just can't figure out who they are. Angels, as a matter of fact, won the first game on Friday at Fenway Park against the Red Sox and then ended up losing the next 2 at Fenway. And they're on a road trip that takes them to Tampa to take on the Rays. So it's kind of a weird division right now because going into the season, the talk was the Houston Astros and the Texas Rangers and then everybody else. And I think the conversation as we are now going into the second full week of play. Pardon me, the third full week of play in Major League Baseball. Is that it's a division that kind of up for grabs, dare I say, at this point. Um, we'll see how it all plays out. I know the A's are playing a little bit better baseball than what how they started off, especially from a defensive standpoint. They were just atrocious defensively, and the focus has been on the stadium situation, moving to Sacramento. But they are playing some exciting brand of baseball, at least trying to gain some sort of momentum from the young players that they have, and so that West is interesting to say the least. So we'll see how it all plays out and go on from there. But that's kind of the American League side of things. The National League, mentioned the Dodgers. They are by far the from an offensive perspective, the best offensive unit. When you go up and down that lineup, I mean, it's a tough lineup to pitch to. They did just lose 2 of 3 to the San Diego Padres at Dodger Stadium this weekend. The one thing that I think everybody going into the season uh, touched on or was concerned about, as far as the Dodgers were concerned, was the pitching, the starting, as well as the bullpen. Yesterday's game against the Padres, they had 14 walks by the Dodgers staff, and most walks issued by a Dodger staff in a game since 1962, and it's just mind-boggling to me that that's an issue that popped up as much as it did yesterday against the Padres 14 times. But something to at least monitor as the season progresses. Now, it's a very deep, I think it's a deep minor league system. They always seem to find arms and always seem to figure it out. But we'll see how that rest of the division ends up playing out. Padres got to be feeling pretty good about themselves, taking 2 or 3 from the Dodgers, especially out on the road. I know there was they call it, it's funny, they call it a bench clearing situation because the benches literally do clear as they walk onto the field and guys from the bullpen jog in. But a pitch, Jurickson Profar took exception to a pitch that was in. He and Will Smith kind of a little back and forth at home plate and a little melee, if you will, a little soiree at Dodger Stadium on Saturday. Nothing happened. I think it's one of those topics where you can kind of go down a rabbit hole where I think players in today's game are overly sensitive to pitches being thrown inside. And I think primarily because very few pitchers in today's game pitch inside. We see kids at the amateur level kind of control the plate, have comfort, whether it's on the inside part of the plate or on the outside part of the plate, and feel like anything that's thrown inside is taken as an offense, as if why are you throwing at me? And I think you kind of have to get back to. I think pitchers do have to get back to establishing the inside part of the plate and make hitters uncomfortable. I think that's good for the game. And I think when you get guys like Profar, whomever else, it just happened to be Profar on Saturday, take exception to somebody throwing inside. It's not a purpose pitch. He was just pitching inside, or a pitch got away from you. But the psyche seems to be somewhat fragile at 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 any level in today's game, from amateur on up, about guys throwing inside just because they feel entitled to the entire plate. And I think there something needs to be done. And I like to believe that pitching coaches are trying to teach pitchers to pitch inside. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially at the amateur level, my son's a freshman in college playing baseball, and I've told him even from high school on up, to travel ball to college, nobody pitches inside. So why are you ever looking in on a particular pitch, especially on a righty-righty matchup? He's a right-handed batter. I said, everything you see at the collegiate level, for the most part, and I'm talking about the majority, and I'm not talking about Paul Skeens type of guy at LSU, or when he was at LSU. I'm talking about the majority, the average guy is not going to pitch inside. Everything is middle away. And so that's why you get hitters at such a young age looking out over the plate, and anything dare come inside, all of a sudden it's a shock to the system. But I think pitchers at a young age need to learn how to pitch inside, and start establishing the inside part of the plate to start keeping hitters off balance, especially the way the offense is going in college, as well as at the professional level. So that's my 2 cents. I see. I kind of just deviated, went down that rabbit hole, and that's kind of how the show works, because that's how, unfortunately, my brain works. Lastly, as far as some of the things that happen on the major league field, the Braves continue to roll. They're a really good team, and they're leading the Phillies right now in the National League East. And so I just think the way the Braves are set up, um, I think it's a two-team race for sure in the National League East, with the Braves being the class of the division, and we'll see how everything else plays out. Phillies are good. Phillies are tough. I'm not sure about those City Connect uniforms. I think they're cool looking, but I think here's another one of those rabbit holes. I think we've really jumped the shark on these City Connect things. Maybe I'll do a segment on it next week, but my initial reaction is, are we done yet? And what is the fascination with the gradation on the color of these uniforms, and why are we keep going to all this dark stuff? It feels like it's starting to look like softball uniforms to me. And I don't not a knock on softball uniforms, and I mean that from a standpoint of like the USSSA uniforms, and I just not buying it. That said, I kind of dig the Phillies a little bit. I think they're kind of cool. Um, I just think I think almost like we're trying too hard with these City Connect uniforms. But we'll leave that for another day. So anyway, um, on the injury front, a couple of things. I know last week touched on all the injuries that were announced, especially from a Tommy John perspective. Spencer Strider's obviously was announced last weekend, a week ago, but he ended up having the surgery prior to this weekend. Dr. Keith Meister, who does a lot of the Braves pitchers, who has done a lot of the Braves pitchers, he is the Texas Rangers team doctor. He's the one who performed the procedure on Spencer Strider. And if you weren't with us last week, this is Strider's second surgery. He had one while he was at Clemson in 2019. And in this procedure that Dr. Meister did, and I was curious about it, so I just wanted to do a little research, because there's the traditional Tommy John surgery, or the UCL reconstruction, and then there's this new kind of procedure called the internal brace procedure. And it seems like oftentimes the internal brace procedure is used on guys having their second or third surgery. So the traditional UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament reconstruction, is usually a donor ligament. It comes from either the forearm or the leg, in the form of a cadaver, and it's sewn into the elbow joint. And it heals, and it usually takes 14 to 18 months, depending on how the rehab goes. Now, that's the traditional. Now, I had to look up the internal brace procedure because I wasn't sure of it, and I've never had the elbow surgery. And this is what it is, and this is one that Meister does quite a bit on his arms as well, which he prefers. It's become a lot more adopted in recent years, and Shohei Ohtani had this done. Lucas Giolito just had his done. Both guys having had now second Tommy John surgeries. This one, what I've found was a tape-like suture anchored into the humerus, which is the upper bone of the arm, and the ulna, the forearm, which remains in place after the athlete returns to play. It will provide additional stability to the structure of the joint going forward, typically, but not always, allowing for a quicker return to play. So That is the internal brace procedure, and that's what Spencer Strider had done. And so we'll see how that works out for him. Let's see if he's able to return uh, at a much quicker pace. I think the more important aspect of Spencer's rehab, or anybody who's had multiple Tommy John surgeries, Shohei, Lucas, Spencer Strider, is making sure that you're not in a hurry pushing things, so that you extend the rehab. You got to be careful with it, and especially with a young player, might as well make sure that everything is 100%. And so I hope that everything works out well for him. But that was happened. That actually came out. That news came out over the weekend that he had the procedure done by Dr. Meister in Texas. And then the other one I mentioned, Justin Verlander. Verlander's made his second rehab start in the minor leagues in North Texas this last Saturday, went 4 innings. Obviously, the object, who cares about the results when you're talking about rehab starts? The object is to get his pitch count up, and barring any setbacks, kind of keeps him on track for a return in the near future to the Houston Astros, who obviously could use an arm like Justin Verlander's. Last week in news, as far as Major League Baseball is concerned, of course, we had to have an update on what happened with Ippei Mizuhara. And obviously, when you're doing a one-man show, you've got to take swigs of water periodically so that you can, be able to talk for an extended period of time. But back to the Mizuhara situation, the interpreter for the show, former interpreter for Shohei Ohtani, turned himself in to authorities in Los Angeles. A 37-page complaint was released to the public that detailed the $16 million, at least $16 million fraud, bank fraud, wire fraud situations perpetrated by Ippei. He bonded out at $25,000. He later apologized to Shohei through his attorney, and it seems as if they are trying to work out some sort of deal with the government and do his time and move on with it. Clearly, the 37-page complaint uh, absolves. It seems to absolve Shohei Ohtani. Wasn't involved in gambling. Wasn't aware of the wire fraud. Did not commence any of the transactions. Wasn't a part of the gambling. And so I think for him, not that not that it bothered him whatsoever, because he clearly just is able to shut everything down and just continue about doing his job from a baseball player perspective. But I think baseball fans across the world thankful that nothing associated with this will end up on Shohei's plate. The only thing that it's funny how people can clamor for others to read 37 pages of a complaint filed by the federal government, but are incapable themselves of reading comprehension. And I say that because the one thing that I've continued to say, I've said it a couple of times, whether it's been on this show, whether it's been through Twitter, whether it's been on the other podcasts that I'm on with Angels Win, um, I've been of the mindset that Shohei should get rid of personnel that handle and have looked out for the financial side. That's pretty much it. That's what I've stated. And and having read through the 37 pages prior to making the tweet that I made last week, I reiterated the exact same thing, that Shohei should get rid of his personnel. I just think there are too many things that fell through the cracks. Uh, and when you read something to the effect that an accountant took the word of Ippei, the interpreter, and not the client, and Shohei, for me, it just gives me a sense of anger, I guess, that these individuals that were charged with this didn't do a better job. And so Look, I know fraud's fraud, and people can do a lot of different things and have done a lot of different things. Uh, but the gist of everything that I've said on the topic has been to basically just change the personnel. I feel wholeheartedly about that, and nothing's going to change. So that was the gist of what I said last week. I stand by it, and I know reading comprehension is difficult for some, but if you want to read between the lines, knock yourself out. But there was no other intent other than what I stated, and that you should change personnel. So enough of that garbage. It's over with. Moving on to some positive things, some fun things to talk about. Jackson Holliday, the number one overall pick of the 2022 MLB draft, finally made his major league debut. If you recall, in spring training, the Orioles sent him down. Even though a lot of folks, especially Orioles fans, felt that he had the opportunity to break camp and had a heck of a spring training, thought that he was break camp, but he went down to the minor leagues and then got called up. He eventually made his debut last week against the Boston Red Sox at Fenway Park. I kind of like the idea of what the Orioles did there, as far as, hey, if you're going to make a major league debut, do it out on the road. Less stress. You don't have to worry about the home crowd, the autographs, the cameras, the media, all that stuff. But he ended up going 0 for 4 in his first game at Fenway Park, made a fantastic defensive play, did pick up an RBI, but then was finally able to notch that first major league hit in yesterday's game against the Milwaukee Brewers. Seventh inning, a base hit through the right side from Abner Uribe, who's the pitcher, a sinker baller from Milwaukee. 100-mile-per-hour sinker. Just nasty to be able to turn that ball through the right side. It snapped an 0 for 13 for Holliday. And I just think that you talk about, relieving the pressure for him. I think it's just amazing to see his face and his reaction. His dad, Matt Holliday, in attendance there at Oriole Park at Camden Yards. It's good to see that Jackson's able to get that first hit, and the first of many, as he's wearing the old number 7. In Philadelphia, Andrew McCutchen, Cooch. He finally got home run number 300. It was like over 220 days between number 299 and number 300. And he finally got it in the 9th inning of a win against the Philadelphia Phillies in Philadelphia. So at least he did it in the state of Pennsylvania. It wasn't in Pittsburgh, but he did collect his 300th home run. The 157th player in Major League Baseball history to have at least 300 home runs. Did it, like I said, in the 9th inning. The cool thing about it is, as the ball sailed into the seats. Now, mind you, it was at the time 7-2 game. Pittsburgh. His home run was a 2-run shot, made it 9-2. So 7-2 game in the 9th inning in Philly. A lot of fans have already gone. It's a Sunday. They're done. They're on their way home, if not already back to the house, having some beers. But the ball that McCutchen hit went off a couple of fans' hands, and it landed in the left hand of a Pirate fan who was there with his son. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. Vinay and Torin Mehta are the Pirates fans, the father son, that ended up with the piece of baseball history, ball number 300, home run number 300 for Andrew McCutchen. And the cool thing about it is that the Pirates were able to get the two of them downstairs, got a chance to talk to Andrew McCutchen, turn the ball over to him. And I just think that was so cool that of all the possibilities being in Philly, that a guy who grew up a Pirate fan wearing his Pirates jersey, his son's wearing a Roberto Clemente jersey, the ball ends up there. And I know Andrew McCutchen is very well loved throughout Major League Baseball, especially in Pittsburgh, that a Pirate fan was able to get it and be able to meet Andrew after the game and turn the ball over. I just think that's fantastic. So congratulations to Andrew McCutchen and the Pirates, and to the two fans that ended up catching that ball and having that interaction. And then lastly for me, on this second episode of the Big Fly Baseball Show, is a cool little story that happened in Oakland over the weekend. Chris Caray, who is the son of Chip Caray, Chip, longtime Braves broadcaster, broadcasting royalty, right? The son of Skip Caray, Harry Caray family. Uh, Chip is now is doing games for the St. Louis Cardinals now in his second season. But anyways, he has a pair of identical twins, Chris and Stephen Caray, and both has started their broadcasting journey a couple of years ago down in the minor leagues. They're identical twins, and they got hired by the Amarillo Sod Poodles a couple of seasons ago, doing games together. And Chris, this past offseason, was hired by the Oakland Athletics along with Jenny Kavner to be part of new members of the broadcast crew for the Oakland Athletics. Well, Chris had his very first game on Friday, and I think it's cool just because I remember my first game with the Arizona Diamondbacks after spending a couple of seasons with the Newark Bears and getting a chance to walk in at that point Bank One Ballpark and call a game for the Arizona Diamondbacks. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I was much older than Chris was at the time of his debut. But be able to go in there on Friday, his first major league game, and you know what happens? He ends up getting a signature call via the walk-off.
Two. Shot the other way. That's going to drop down. Schulman waved home. Here comes the play. He is safe. Lawrence Butler answers the call. And his first career walk-off happens on Friday, April the 12th. He started it, and the Law finished it.
That is amazing to me. I think that is the coolest thing in the world, that he is able to get a walk-off win in his very first big league game on Friday, April the 12th, made it a memorable one. I think Stephen Caray is on his way to becoming a Major League Baseball announcer at some point in the very near future. He continues to call games for Amarillo, but both gentlemen are fantastic announcers, and I couldn't be any happier. I remember having them when Amarillo, when I was in Frisco running the Rough Riders organization at the time. They came into town, and both of them sat in the office, and we talked. I remember Chip had called me and asked me, "Hey, would you mind talking to the boys?" I'm like, "No, of course not." I think that's the whole point of, when you get to a certain point in your career, you start sharing the information and trying to mentor as much as possible. And I remember them sitting in my office, and they were just the greatest kids, and just asking questions, wanting to get better. They've done some fall league games as well. And it's great to see Chris get the call, but Stefan is certainly on his heels. He'll be in the big leagues very soon. So congratulations to the Caray family once again. The legacy continues to grow from a broadcasting perspective. That's going to do it for today's show. I really appreciate you listening and watching to the Big Fly Baseball Show. Like I said, short and sweet today, just a couple of things to get off the chest. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on any of my social media platforms. You can find me on X at Victor Rojas, and pretty much everywhere else it's at Victor Rojas 29. I'm Victor Rojas, your host on the Big Fly Baseball Show. This has been episode number 2. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment on the videos on our YouTube channel, the Big Fly Baseball Show. And feel free to click and link and pass it along to all your friends. For this Monday, I wish you nothing but the very best. Thank you for listening and watching to the Big Fly Baseball Show.